too much. Okay. Okay. 5, 6, 7, go.
Hi everybody. Welcome to the Ditto Project with Gigi
and Amina.
It says Mina on it.
Oh, I'm sorry, you all. It's okay.
Okay.
It's on the flyer. It says with Gigi and Mina because those are our nicknames. But yeah. My name is Amina,
and I'm Yajita.
Yes. So if you hear us going back and forth between the two, obviously we're the same people.
Yeah, Gigi is Yajita.
Yes.
And Mina is Amina.
Literally. But you know what's crazy? Literally, we have been best friends for 10 years. She's the only person that does not call me Mina, like out of my family.
Because her name is Amina.
Yes, it is. But
you don't call me Gigi.
I don't.
Yeah, because my name is Yajita. That's just how we know each other.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, welcome to the Ditto Project. You also probably hear us say like TDP because I feel like that's a shorter version, a little more,
and it's cute.
Yeah, a little more easy on the ears. But why did we name it the Ditto Project? You want to talk about that? Kind of our vision.
So we were, which we'll talk about a little bit later, we had a podcast before that we were trying to do, and the name for that podcast, 20 somethings, was pretty good.
Yeah.
If y'all are OG, you know, supporters, y'all know about 20 somethings. Yeah. But so we were looking for obviously a different name for this podcast, and we were going through, we knew we wanted to have something like catchy, so we knew we wanted to do, what was it, Project?
Yeah, something like the project, something.
Yeah. And so then we were thinking about what words would really show what we're targeting throughout the podcast. And you'll see this like in our bio. When we talk, what we're really going for is like relatability. And so obviously we did not want to call ourselves the Relatability Project. That's just ugly. So we were looking into like, okay, what communicates relatable? And Ditto came about.
Yeah, basically because it's like everything that we hope to talk about on here, we really want it to be like things that other people are going through, have experienced, or are about to go through. So it's like, oh my gosh, honestly, same. Like Ditto, yeah. I went through the same thing, yeah. Or you know, I'm also struggling with that or thriving in that area. So yeah, that's basically how we came up with the project. So if you want to post something online with a little TDP hashtag,
you know, Ditto, like you know the vibe. While we're on the topic, and we kind of already talked about it a little bit with relatability, but what would you say is the mission or the vision or like the focus, the central focus of TDP?
Yeah, we really, like we said, we want it to be relatable content, casual conversations. Like my vision for this is kind of like, we have very long FaceTime calls, where we will talk about literally anything under the sun. So this is kind of our platform for bringing you onto our FaceTime calls. We're two young Black Muslim women, so I feel like we have a lot of just intersecting identities and experiences that we can share. And even if you're not a woman, or even if you're not necessarily 23 years old, even if you're not Muslim, I still feel like there's so many different things that we can pull on that we have in common, and we just want to be able to share those different perspectives and hope that you all will find some type of commonality. If there's anything that we can offer, we would love to be able to offer that. And there are things that we from already seeing from what you all have been engaging with, like on the Instagram.
Yeah, y'all been hitting us up.
Yeah, for real. Like literally, you all have things to share too. So, you know, we'll explore opportunities for that in the future. But
yeah. Okay, well, I think that really sums up TDP. So before we jump into the meat of today's discussion that we're gonna have, which you'll know by now because you'll see it as the name of this podcast or this episode, but just a little bit about who we are. I'll let Amina go first, just maybe introducing ourselves, just a brief synopsis of who you are, you know, so that people know.
Yes. Okay, so obviously my name is Amina. You call me Mina, you call me Amina, I don't care. I'm 23. I'm an Aquarius. I'm not a super zodiac fanatic. I don't think either of us are, but sometimes I feel like they be a little on point. But I'm an Aquarius sun. For all y'all who know your whole charts, I'm a Cancer rising and a Capricorn moon. I went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I graduated in 2020 with a degree in community health. Obviously live in Chicago, and I work in like legal and finance operations. I'm not about to put my whole job title and everything on here. If you want to
looking people up,
you know, literally, if you want to know all of that, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll have some further discussions there. But yeah, I've been working in this for about a year, and before that I was in healthcare and like health administration. So yeah.
Did you say what your major was?
Yeah, community health.
Okay, great. So I'm also a college grad. I am 22, about to turn 23 in like literally 1 month almost. My name is Yajita. I already said that earlier. I live in Chicago, but I'm not a Chicago native. I'm from Cleveland. Very,
she's not.
Very, very.
I hope that everybody on this podcast, she claims Cleveland, Ohio over Chicago. She lived there until she was like a year old.
It doesn't matter. It may have been a very small amount of time, but it's in my heart, and that's all. My heart is not even over here. It's in my heart, and that's all that matters. Me and her, fun fact, we actually work together. I am strictly in the finance side of things, finance and grants management. I really love my job. I've been there for like ever since college, and for college I went to DePaul University. I don't necessarily rep DePaul University, not a lot of pride there, but it is a great school. And my major was finance. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, I'm a Gemini, which you probably guessed by my birthday is in a month. I don't know my moon and sun. I'm not that deep in it, but I am a Gemini.
The Gemini would be your sun. That's the major one that everybody knows.
Okay.
She doesn't know her rising or her moon.
But you know, I took it once and it said that like all 3 were Gemini, and I was like, oh, this can't be right. I feel like that's not right.
Some people have that.
That sounds crazy. No. Like I'm a two-faced crazy person.
Oh my gosh,
but,
I'm screaming.
All right, so do you want to kick us off with our topic?
Yes. So as you all have seen on the Instagram story, we have been gathering so much information and feedback about what you all would like to hear about and talk about on this podcast. And obviously for us, we kind of had an idea of where we wanted to go from the start. We wanted to kind of talk about the eras of your 20s, but we kind of wanted to hear what you all wanted to discuss, and we kind of focus in on that. So if you remember and you participated, we had a question on the Instagram that said, what 3 words would you use to describe the era of life you're in? So we had the number 1 word that they said was their growth or growing era. So this podcast episode obviously is called In My Growth Era. But other words that came up a lot were like acceptance, patience, soft girl, consistency, feminine, gratitude, reflection, ambitious. I mean, the list is extremely long.
Very lengthy.
Y'all won't see it on the podcast, but if you see like this on my iPad on the video, it was a lot.
And we love and appreciate it. Thank you for your response.
No, seriously, because that gave us a lot of content and things to just think about. But yeah, you want to move us forward with like the kind of, what does it mean to kind of be in a growth era? What do you think that means?
I feel like growth era is so meaty. Like, you can grow in so many ways. You can grow in physical, like obviously we all grow from being a baby to being an adult. You can grow mentally, you can grow spiritually, you can grow you know, educationally. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can grow. But when I think about being in my growth era, especially with relation to the points that like the other eras that people said they were in, I feel like it's really just about elevation mainly. Like going from where you were once upon a time to a different point in time. And really, nobody else can say what your growth era is for you, what growth looks like for you, because today you could be doing one thing and the next day you're doing something totally different, and nobody really recognizes that change in you except for you. So I feel like it's just really about moving from point A to point B, elevating, ascending, just being better in life.
No, definitely. That just makes me think about when we first tried to make our podcast.
I'm crying.
I feel like we have reasons for why we canceled that. We can talk about it in full transparency. I think we're both very transparent people, at least on like a general scale. So kind of with like, we started our old podcast in the summer of, what was it, 2020 or 21?
I feel like it was 21.
21, okay.
Yeah, 21.
Summer of 21. This was like a year after we graduated college. It was still during COVID, so it was like everything hadn't gone back to normal yet. And yeah, we were like, okay, we're in our 20-somethings. We're going through all these changes after graduation. We're working,
let's
like,
talk about it.
Big girl jobs and all these different types of things. But what do you think was like our kind of frame of mind during that era? It was just, I would say,
young, hot, and wild. Just doing anything mentally, literally, like we were just all over the place. Very all over.
I feel like it was kind of like the epitome of just like young and dumb. Like, just want to talk about whatever, do whatever. Not like we were out here committing crimes and doing anything crazy like that, but just like not really having wisdom in what it is that we want to share. And kind of just, you know, we're just having fun experiences and we're just gonna talk about that on the internet. But it's like, I think now, 2 years later, we're much more intentional, I think, with everything that we do. And I think even, you know, we don't know who's gonna watch this podcast or like, you know, how seriously you all take these things, but I think now, especially when it comes to social media, anything that I share with other people, I just try to be intentional with like my words, my experiences, and the perspective that I'm speaking from. Like, don't speak on things you don't have the wisdom not to speak about, or you don't have some type of like, you haven't studied information about it, or you don't have like things that are good to share, if that makes sense.
And what you're saying really makes me think of like literally where we're talking about elevation and moving to a different phase. That, you know, when we rewatched some clips from 20-somethings before we made this, and disgusted is such a strong word, but it was so cringe. Like, I mean, it was like like just
talking to talk.
Yeah,
like, literally just talking to talk.
Anything. And I think when we were coming up with this, especially with talking about relatability, we're never, or I can't tell the future, but I don't feel like we're gonna look back on this and be like, what were we talking about here? You know, we may be like, wow, I'm so much wiser now. You know, I was talking about growth here, but look at all the growth I've experienced now. But it's not our intention to talk about any topics that we're gonna look back and be like, did you really say that? Or like, damn, who were you at that time? So I think really that shows a level of growth just in 2 years of striving to be somebody that we can be proud of, our family, our community, our spiritual community. Everybody can be proud of our friends, and not so much, oh, hot in the head, we young, 21, doing whatever we want to do, thinking whatever we want to think, saying whatever we want to say. Because that, like Amina said, that does have impact, and we need to be more intentional. So.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a super heavy point that we hope you all can like feel from like what we're talking about and what we engage with on the Instagram. We don't want to just post and like take up space and hear our own voices just to do it. We hope that is something that like has a positive impact, even when it comes to most simple topics. But in terms of this growth era discussion, at what point for you, I feel like this is such a loaded topic, but to kick it off, what era of your life did you think, or what time period do you think you experienced the most growth?
That's a loaded question. I feel like when I think about the most distinct changes, and I'm a person who, I'm a Gemini after all, you know, there's multiple sides to me, and I'm a person who I feel like 1 year does not look like the next year. And that's true in both of our case, like we just said with the podcast, you know, who would have thought right now when we were creating that podcast and we were so like opinionated and all of this, who would have thought in just 2 years we would be here? And I think even last year, you know, we didn't have the same mindset we had now, but even last year we would have been growing from that point. So I feel like all the time I'm changing, but when I think of like a chapter closed for real, I actually think of high school to college.
Really?
High school to college is it for me, because I don't know that girl. Like, I don't know her. I don't know her. If I saw her tomorrow, I would not recognize her, because my thoughts, my identity, my beliefs, everything about me, I feel like has changed since high school. And you might say like, well, this was supposed to happen. You were a kid then, and now you're grown now, and this, that, and the third. But it's just in such a very, I don't know if visceral is the right word, but in a very visceral way. Like, everything about myself, when people bring up stuff from that time period, I'm like, I said that? Like, I can't even fathom, you know, being in that position. So I can talk about that for days, but I definitely think it was high school to college for me. What about for you?
I think for me, it was definitely from college graduation to now, hands down. I think, so, and kind of, so I guess to kind of sum it up would be like the COVID era. I feel like everybody had learned so much about themselves during COVID, but for me it was also such a transformational time because it was like you go from high school to college, and that's like you go from the shelter of like your parents' home to like being out in the real world. But you're in the real world in the sense of you're also around other college age students, every young adults who are all, it's kind of still protected in a way, even though you do have freedom and independence. And then leaving from college to now the real world, it was like, I don't know, there are so many more responsibilities I had, so many things that I had to make decisions for with myself, and I think I just had to like determine what is my identity going to be from here on out. Like whatever, I felt like anything that I have done within the past 3 years have been some of the most formative like aspects of my personality, because it's like what I choose to do now, what I engage in now, this is kind of setting me up for the trajectory for the rest of my life, literally. So now I'll get more into that. But
so with that, you know, obviously there are different stages of growth that you can experience, but I think I just want to, you know, talk about like your internal growth versus your external growth, and maybe like in that time period or in your life in general, what were some things that, you know, you were like, okay, this is external growth, and maybe that was manifested from the internal growth, but what were like the distinct things? This is external versus this is really more of that internal growth and work.
I think externally, it was obviously an environmental change, going from college town to coming back to Chicago. I had never been an adult living in Chicago. I think that was the first time I had to like actually get a real job. I've always had a job since I was like 15 years old, but obviously it's like, no, I'm actually starting my real career. And that was so, thankfully somehow everything always ended up working out for me, but it was chaotic. Like trying to get established in my career during COVID, like I thank God that like everything worked out, but it definitely was difficult. So going from like, oh, I'm just a little front desk person working at a student building on campus, to like, no, what are your career goals like long term, and what is this first role that's gonna kick it off? So I think shifting from college town to Chicago, switching from little side jobs to a real full-time career, and I think spiritually, like, that is absolutely the most, actually no, I think those are my external things. Spiritually is an internal thing. Externally, I guess the last thing would be like that was my first time having an apartment in the city. I always had an apartment on campus, so like I had like 4 apartments or 3 apartments, but this was my first time like getting an apartment in Chicago. And let me tell y'all, I just had like this dream life that I wanted to live, and I am definitely that person. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to live that dream life, and every aspect of that dream life has to be into place. That goes to my apartment, my car, every little thing, and that was kind of honestly when I started. But then I finally had the resources to support it, if that makes sense, because like, oh, like I finally have my real job and can support these things, versus in college it's like, oh, I want to create this life for myself, but you don't have the resources to do it, and you're so overworked and overwhelmed with schoolwork and all that type of stuff. Honestly, I think that my internal shifts and growth happen after these major things. I think that I've always been a very focused person, very driven, and I think that in terms of like getting things done, whether it was related to my career, or getting my like first apartment and all these different types of things, I had a goal and I knew what it would take to get those goals. So I don't think it was much growth was needed. I think growth was needed in other areas, but in terms of that, honestly, that's just kind of always been how I've been. I know what it takes to get to something, and my whole life has kind of been operating like that. So it didn't take much out of me to like, okay, this is the next level, and these are the steps I'm going to have to take to get to this next level, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think to kind of go off a little bit, my growth internally that happened the most was like in my mindset and beliefs, kind of after that period. I think so it was like new job that I like, it's in my career, boom, apartment, got it, car, got it, all these different types of things. And then I was like, okay, I'm back in the city, and you know what I can do? Take my butt to the mosque.
I'm literally crying.
That was when
development.
That was when it all like started to change. Now obviously anybody who knows me, like I'm a Muslim, I'm in the Nation of Islam. I was born a Muslim, born in the Nation of Islam. So it's not like this was something new to go to the mosque. But to go from going once or twice a year, like when I come home for breaks, to being like, oh, you can go every week. You can go multiple times
every week.
Like,
Lord,
it's like, okay, is this something I really want to like commit to? And I've been registered. I've been a part of, like, I made the commitment to be part of the Nation of Islam, to be a Muslim when I was 15 years old, actually. That, like I said, I'm 23 now. But because I made that decision so early, I definitely had to do a reassessment of, like, as an adult, now that I have more freedom, now that I do have more choices, like, am I really, really committed to this? And I think that's when everything started to change for me.
That mindset,
because it's like, if you're going to be committed, you have to make lifestyle adjustments. You have to grow and change in your thinking about everything. And me finally being back in Chicago, and like, you can go to the mosque or you cannot go to the mosque. And if you go to the mosque, you're going to have to, excuse me, and if you go to the mosque, you're going to have to commit to living a certain type of way and being a certain type of woman, and just so much comes with that. And I had to go through a period of like, will I or won't I? Like,
is this what I really want?
Yeah, is this what I really want? Because for me, I'm like an all or nothing type person. So it wasn't half in, half out. For a period, probably it was, but it was like, I always knew this, or quote unquote half in, half out period I was going to, as I was striving to make this decision. I knew it was going to eventually get to a point where it's like, nope,
you gotta pick.
You have to pick. And I think when I was like, I know what I'm picking. I'm picking Islam. I'm picking to actively be a Muslim. Everything else fell into place, and then I very quickly saw so many changes in myself as like a result of that decision. But I don't want to take up too much space, so I'm gonna let you talk about yours.
I think well, I'll answer after this. I think that spiritual growth is one that, you know, is a very like juicy, layered topic, because for each person it looks so different. And I think we all do come to this point where, you know, we're at this crossroads where we have to decide, what am I gonna do? And I feel like when you're younger, media paints it out like spirituality is kind of like a coat or something, you know, an accessory or something that just like comes with you. When you see on TV like movies or shows about the church or preaching or anything like that, you see some people who you would deem as like Jesus freaks, or like, oh, those the church people, these people who go to church. But it doesn't, in regular everyday life, in popular movies, in Inception, in, I don't know, Avatar, in I've never even seen Titanic, but Titanic, like, you're not seeing I don't know why I said that, but you get the point. You're not seeing some super spiritual side of these people. You're not seeing them bow down to God and say, man, I really need you in my life right now. You know, maybe a tragedy happens and they're like, oh, God, please get me out of this situation. But it's a 5-second clip. So it makes you think like, oh, spirituality, that's just a thing that, you know, you engage in at certain points in your life when you're going through something. But it's not like that. And it's like you said, you come to this crossroads, and that's what growth is really all about, is that point where you even realize, Dad, I gotta make a decision. Like, I can't, like you said, half in, half out. I can't wear spirituality like a coat, because it consumes your whole being, really. Like, and this is not, I'm not just saying textbook religion, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, anything like that. I'm not saying what book you go to. I'm saying for real, for a connection with self, connection with God, it just synchronizes so much that you naturally will have to come to the crossroads where you have to say, I'm either doing this and I'm staying on this side, or I gotta move my butt over here. And that, I feel like, in anybody's growth journey, really does symbolize like a pinnacle of growth, because it's like that really can decide for you a lot of stuff. And so, you know, I really did like that you raised the point about the crossroads. Did you?
No, definitely. I think I want to hear about your external shifts. I feel like we're kind of on the same page as far as internal shifts, and we can, now we're going to go down the rabbit hole with that probably. So you can talk about kind of the more physical ways that you saw yourself going from one stage to the next in your life.
Yeah. So focusing back on this period that I said was probably most transformational, high school to college. High school was a bad time for me. And me and Amina went to high school together. We've been best friends for a very long time now. So her interpretation of what was going on with me may not be the same. But high school was a bad time. Now that I'm an adult and I know what depression feels like, and I can put names to things, anxiety, you know, feelings of hopelessness and all of this. I mean, I had everything, because honestly, it was feeling like I was like almost in a cage. And this is not speaking to my specific high school. I'm saying like the experience that I was having as a person that age going through this experience. And I've talked to other high schoolers who go to various high schools, and they've expressed like similar sentiments of, it's a feeling like, okay, and it really happens from 13. I entered high school early, so that's what I'm saying, 13. But that period from 13 to like 16, let's say 16 is the age that I left high school. I was just like, what is going on? You know, I tried something new. No, this doesn't stick. I can't do this. People might judge me for this. And my thoughts are not my own thoughts. I go to school this day. People mad at me for this. This is happening. This is happening. And it was like, I had a yearning to be like, I want to be myself. But you're so subject to peer pressure and what other people have going on and what other people think you should be doing. And I feel like that's really, really hard. And now, like, I talk to high schoolers who are experiencing things like I was experiencing: colorism, racism. I went to an all-black high school, but I mean, people are people. I still experience colorism, and like having to navigate every day, like, do people think I'm ugly? Like, does it even matter if I do my hair? Because people probably think I'm ugly. People cracking jokes about me, things like this. This was consuming my mind, and this is not like the only thing, but this is consuming my mind in a time where I'm yearning to find some identity for myself. And that drove me to a point that when I got to college, you couldn't tell me nothing. All hell broke loose. Like, not in a bad way, like I was doing anything, but I'm completely detached from this. I don't want to hang out with people I used to hang out with. I don't want to talk to nobody from high school. I don't even want to think about high school. As soon as, and a great example of that, people have always called me Gigi in my life when I was younger. That was a family nickname that I got. But a great example of that, as soon as I got on campus, my name is Gigi. That's why if you will ever interact with people from college or from who went to college with me, they will always call me Gigi. Because my name is Gigi. This is the new and improved. This is how I do things. It was just a totally different version of me, and I won't say that was good or bad. Like, you know, I was able to find a sense of self-identity. It might not have been the right sense of self-identity, but it was like shackles were broken off of me.
You kind of like gave yourself a clean slate, because you're in a totally different environment.
Yeah, literally, like nothing of my old life is being brought into this new life. And again, I'm not saying that's good or bad, because that definitely comes with some negatives. Like, there are values and things that I'm just now able to get back to because I had this state of release then. I don't want any of this. But that external change of literally going from one environment to another was just so healthy for me. And at that time, like I said, I was 16. So my mom wanted me to still live at home. So for my first year of college, I was still living with her. But because this change and this growth had already started happening, it has come to an end, for real. At the end of my first year, I was like, all right, me, I'm leaving. I need to go live on campus, and I did the only way that I knew how to, and that like even sped me up in the future. That summer, so it was the summer of 2016, and then again the summer of 2017. Some of the most hot and popping summers I've had in my entire life, because I was just so active and just, I was exploring so much, I was learning so much. I learned so much from the summer when I first started going to college, and then when I lived on my own, I was like, what? I can be outside till 2 a.m. I can do this, and I can kick with my friends here, and I can go hang out here, and I can be across the other way town. Nobody is calling me. Right. So these external changes, they just symbolize so much to me, and I learned so much about myself. And I think though, one negative I can say is that I feel like I let myself go from one mind state to another, which kind of speaks to internal growth, but I don't even know if it was growth in this instance. It might have been decline. I went from, okay, I know this truth, I know this truth, I know this truth, you know, that I got from high school and a spiritual background and things like that, and then I just kind of like threw it away when I got to college. It was like, it is what it is. I don't have to do none of that, and I let other people's truths become my own. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but you know, what I may have felt like, oh, this is black pride and I love myself and this and the third, somebody else like, you look ghetto. I'm like, what? Like, I like braids and, you know, things that I felt were, I'm not saying braids is the epitome of black culture, but I just felt like I let go of those things, particularly with going to a PWI, because other people's truths became my own truths, and I didn't really like that. And now I'm just now realizing post-college that I did that. So that was, you know, a bit of how external growth went for me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
College was an interesting time. I feel like that's like the only way I can describe it. Yeah. I feel like I was like 18 different people. I feel like, because like you said, you give yourself a clean new slate basically, because you're in an environment where you don't know anybody. I knew some people at my college, but for the majority, 99% of those people didn't know me before I stepped onto that college. And you could just say I'm whoever I am and do whatever I think correlates to that identity, and people are just gonna have to take it. Yeah. And I feel like for me, I was like trying just I just didn't know who or what I wanted to be. I thought I did. Yeah. I feel like like I said, I've always been very focused and driven. So I thought I had everything mapped out, planned out once I started college. But then once I got in that environment, I was just tested in so many different ways. Like, do you really want this thing? Okay, do you want to be like these people? Do you want to be like these people? Do you want to be like this? And I feel like I was just like, I don't know. And I feel like I was literally, like I said, I just feel like I lived like 18 different lives trying to figure out what felt right to me. And I feel like I kind of was starting to get there literally at the very end, like senior year, first, second semester. That was when I was kind of like, okay, am I committed to certain things, or am I hanging around certain people because these are the people that I like want to be around for the rest of my life? These activities that I'm committed to, is this what I really want to be committed to for the rest of my life? And then I had to make some decisions, and I feel like that kick-started kind of the internal growth that I talked about earlier. I feel like that kick-started it spiritually a little bit, but definitely didn't really happen until like after I was away from college. Then that's when the spiritual and just internal growth started to really take off. But it sounds like even mentally that you grew a lot, that you know, through trying on these different identities, you were able to kind of, you know, get some mental growth out of that. So, yeah. What ways? Well, I guess actually I'll kind of talk about, if you don't mind, like my mindset changes between, because like I said, my growth I think more so happened like during like COVID, between college and like now. So I think the ways like my mindsets changed and beliefs changed. Growing up, like Islam was always a part of me, but you just like, you have to really, when you're older, you have to decide, like, if everything, do you really believe everything is true, like, for you? Like, not because anybody else said it's true, but it's like, is your faith really your own? And I think that I was able to, like, ask a lot of questions. Thankfully, like, my parents and people around me were very open to, like, having conversations and discussions about areas that I maybe wasn't sure about or hadn't had full clarity on. And then I think it was kind of like, so I think through months, I don't know, more than months, probably like a good like year, I just took to really like, I'm like, any question I have, I need it answered. Because I'm not the type of person, like I said, it's all or nothing. If I'm gonna be stand 10 toes for like my faith and what I believe in, not in a way that's like imposing on other people, but like standing 10 toes for myself, I had to like make sure I had a full understanding of everything. And like, for example, modesty was something that like I really struggled with.
Talk about the modesty.
Like, Lord, I literally had to, everything else in Islam, like I'm good here, I'm good here, I got that. Modesty, I was like, why do I need to dress a certain type of way? Like, I just didn't understand. I think I kind of felt like, I'm like, I don't know, I just think that in a lot of ways I like to be free. And anything that I feel like, quote unquote feel like, because nobody's forcing me to do anything, but like if I ever felt constricted, I think younger, any type of like guidelines or rules, it kind of made me like panic. Even though guidelines and rules will save your life. Will literally save your life. Like, literally, I just cannot explain how now I've come to understand like so many things of like how you live your life. If you live within certain bounds, you're protected from so you're just protected from so much. And I think that modesty is one of those ways that for me it's protect. Once I committed to it, and obviously I'm not perfect, but I'm striving and have, inshallah, improved a lot in that area. That was something that, like I said, like I didn't understand, but once I started to understand it more, like I don't know, it just, I saw an external shift with how I presented myself to the world, and internal shift in like how I perceived that concept.
And I think it's interesting that you bring up modesty, because even with thinking about college in terms of spirituality, and going back to the concept of what I was saying, how people show spirituality in media and in life, it will really do a number on you in terms of that kind of thing. And it's just, it's like you were saying, guidelines, like, you know, spirituality and structure, even law is given to you, you know, for a reason. When you have these guidelines, it just aids you in such a better way. And I feel like college is so representative of a time when it's like, break free, do whatever you want to do, you know, oh, you got it, you're still, you know, we're all going through it, you know, you still have this time. And I think people warn you beforehand, like, oh, you're gonna be on your own, you gotta take care of yourself. But they're talking about it in such a physical sense, like, oh, I gotta pay for my own bills. But when you have a quote unquote freedom of mind, or where like you're coming in with this blank slate mind, anything can be told to you and you will go along with that. Like, people could tell you, oh, at heart you're still a Muslim even if you're doing this or doing this, and you are. Muslim just means you submit your will to do the will of God. So at the end of the day, you are. But guidelines, like, you're not going to be successful outside of the guidelines, because that's what guidelines are there for. You're not going to be successful breaking the law, because the law is there for that reason. Like, that's what it's there for. So I feel like even with that process, which symbolizes so much growth, of re-exploring your beliefs, and not even just spiritually, but everything you believe in after that, is like a lot. That's a lot.
Absolutely. I went on a tangent about my internal, at least in spirituality, that internal shift for me. But how about you for your internal growth during that high school to college era?
Well, I mean, I would say mine's mirrors some of the sentiments that you've been talking about. I feel like growth wise, I learned a lot about myself, you know, going from high school to college. And again, I just want to triple reiterate, it's not all good, it's not all bad, but I learned a lot about myself, and I think I came into this very keen sense of identity that I really enjoy now. Because it is such a transition, going from college to post-collegiate, I still had more growth to experience then. But I think I kind of really said for myself, like, this is who I'm going to be, you know, that whole idea of new identity. This is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. And I kind of lived in that. And I like that I lived in that because it aided so much for me in terms of preparing me for growth. And, you know, that's something that I think we plan to talk about like what prepares you for growth. I think kind of having that low point for you almost as a launching pad to leap you through the air into something new. And I feel like college was that low point. I was doing so much to find myself, what I thought I liked, you know, whether it be boys or food or how I want to wear my hair or, you know, what I believe in, what I don't believe in, what standard I want to strive for. I found that, you know, I want something different now. So having that launch pad of like, okay, I know I don't want this anymore, to then leap through the air into something new, I feel like that really just prepared me for the growth that I experienced in college. And again, not all good, not all bad, but I just feel like, you know, I did experience and I learned a lot about myself. And I think patience with myself and not being so hard on myself was some of the major things that I learned. One thing that really characterized my experience, like I said, I graduated early. And I graduated early, as you know, because I had dual college credits. And so everyone in my family had a plan for me. You're going to go to college. This is what you're going to do. You're going to be out in 2.5, 3 years, and you're going to do this way, and da-da-da-da. And when I got to college, originally, that's the track I was on. My first semester or quarter, I was on Dean's List. I think my second quarter, I might have been on Dean's List or like one grade beneath being on Dean's List. And, you know, that's the track I was on. Then something about that third quarter, I was just like, I don't want to be on this track. Like, sure, it was a track of excellence. I had the ability to graduate in 2 to 3 years, but I didn't want it anymore. I wanted to slow down, and I wanted to say, what do I want to do? I decided, actually, I came to a point in time. So going into college, I paid half of my tuition. I had a scholarship. I paid half. My mother paid the other half. And so I always had a job in college. I worked Potbelly, my favorite restaurant. I worked at Potbelly, and so that was a big focus. And I was working at Potbelly, and I was trying to keep grades, like all A's. And man, at a certain point, I think it was around that third semester, I decided I don't want grades to be my main focus of being here. And that was hard for me because being a high achieving, you know, person before that, where I'm like top of my class doing all of this, it was really hard to make the decision, like, I don't want to be top of my class. Right. Like, and that decision was something internal, you know. My family would ask about my grades. I would tell them, like, oh, sometimes I would lie, but I would tell them, like, oh, I made a B here, and they would be like, oh, you know, I made the occasional C. I won't lie. And I'm not advocating for, you know, not striving for excellence in academics. You definitely should. But for me, I had to accept a C is fine. Like, there's some of my peers who are getting, like, genuine Fs. Like, my standard for myself was always 3.0 or above. And again, not that there's anything wrong with the F, but coming from this background, if I'm all the way up here, I had to, you know, have a middle ground. Yeah. So my middle ground was above a 3.0 is good with me. And if I saw myself inching towards beneath the 3.0, I would kick into gear. But what I decided would be my focal point is social aspects, relations, learning more about myself, and just growing as a person. And academics has to be on the back burner for that. Because here's the thing. One thing, if you in college, we can talk about this in another episode, but when they say C's get degrees, listen, C's do get degrees.
They absolutely do.
They definitely get degrees. Absolutely. Certain jobs, they will be like, what was your GPA? Especially when you're fresh out of college. After that first year, when you out of college, don't nobody care about that GPA.
Literally, nobody's asking for your GPA.
Nobody care about the GPA. And some career fields, they don't even care at all. So at the point that you got the degree, you just as good as the person who got the honors.
Literally.
You just as good as them. So I feel like I had to focus on personal growth. I had to focus on what was really growing me. And that's why I say there is so much growth for me from that high school to college period. Because high school Yejida would have never been like, oh, grades don't matter, I'm gonna focus on personal growth. I'd be like, this is all I have. But college Yejida was able to say, no, I need to take a step back, look at myself holistically, and really develop. And because of that, I excelled. I want to necessarily say academically, but the life I lead now is people who were excelling academically was talking about putting me on. So, you know, because I made that shift for myself, I was still able to excel career-wise and, you know, educationally and all of this, because I had to refocus myself in a way that other people may have been on a different track, you know, but I had to do what was best for me. So moving away a little bit though from heavy on the spiritual and eyes opening side, maybe like a little bit more surface level, but still something very deep. What do you think, or how do you think you've grown, like personality wise, like as a person? How do you think you've grown?
Oh, my personality has developed a lot. I think I used to be very hot-headed. I feel like I used
to talk about the hot-headed.
I was very hot-headed. I was very quick with my reactions to everything and everyone. I felt like I was always very like defensive and like just protective of myself, and I felt like anytime I felt like somebody was coming at me or doing something to like threaten my view of myself, or like I don't even know, it was just like these perceived things of my safety, I was just so quick to react, so quick to like just go off. And I think now I have learned how to kind of think 5 times before I speak, think 5 times before I make a decision, and just trying to think like my first reaction is probably not the best reaction. Like my first thought is probably not going to have all the context I need to appropriately respond, to appropriately like make a decision, all these different types of things. And I feel like now I just try to be so much more thorough and intentional. I don't know, I keep bringing up this word intentional in this podcast, but just intentional about the things that I say, the way that I react. So I feel like that has made me a lot more, I was never like, I wouldn't say I was like rowdy or loud ever. I don't think that's really been me, but just now overall, just so much more calm. And I still got a little spicy side, but it's not in a way that like, it's not in a way that like is confrontational, I would say. It's like, if you see me getting passionate about something, that's just what it is. It's just passionate. And it's like, usually I try to make sure I'm on the right side of things, and then I'm just gonna be who I am. If I'm a passionate person, that's just what it is. But I feel like before, it used to just be like, girl, you're not even on the right side of this issue, so you need to, let's bring it back. And let's think before you say that next thing, seriously. So I think that has definitely changed within me. I think something I'm constantly working on is like my communication, which kind of ties into the other thing, but just like being more communicative. I feel like I used to be so, on one hand, I was very like reactionary and would like go off, but like a part of those quick reactions would just be to like cut something off completely. I'm not asking any questions, I don't want to hear it. I see something I don't like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. We don't need to be a part of each other's lives anymore. Anything, I'm done. And it's like, that leaves no room for healthy communication. That leaves no room for atonement. That just doesn't leave room for anything. And you cannot go through life like that. And I feel like my communication skills have gotten so much better now. And I think it came from like I said, that urge to like protect myself. But like, you can protect yourself and also be willing to have like effective conversations and hear somebody else's viewpoint. You can also have effective communication and not cower down on your viewpoint. You just have to learn how to say it in a way that is respectful of the other person, in a way that you're advocating for yourself, but also understanding like everything is a two-way street. So that's something that I've really like worked on, I think, and it's changed a lot. It's changed my personality and just like how I handle all of my different day-to-day interactions or conflict or anything like that. And Yadita knows about this because literally when I tell you, so much growth in our friendship.
Definitely.
Like, literally, like, not that, I mean, we've been close since the day we met, literally.
Yeah.
But just, we challenge each other to, like, we can see you can see the negative aspects of my personality, and like we stick with each other as we're trying to like push through that, like let's overcome that. So yeah, those are some ways my personality changed. But how about you?
Well, it's crazy because mine's the direct opposite of yours. I have embraced aggression. I won't go to classify it as aggression because I'm not aggressing anybody, or I'm never the aggressor, but assertiveness to its max where it almost borders on aggression. And here's why. You might think aggressive Black woman, nobody wants to be that, whatever, but nothing will ever happen for you, in my opinion, without you setting that hard boundary. And not hard like, oh, if someone kind of toes it, it'll be okay, but I still have this boundary. No, boundary there. You know not to cross it. You don't even want to cross it. You don't even think to cross it. None of that. Because it's an eat or get ate kind of reality, and I never want to be a predator. That's not my intent, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm actively aggressing people or anything, but I'm not about to get ate. Like, I'm not about to be the prey ever. So because of that, I have had to embrace that side of myself, whereas before, I can remember times, particularly in high school, but also in college, where I was kind of like, oh, this person said this thing to me, but I'm not gonna do, I don't want to rock the boat, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do this. And it's like, no, stand on it. Stand on it. And I can, a small example that I can cite that shows that progress of thinking is, when I first started college, I had a professor. It was a Caucasian woman, and nobody at all ever should be saying the N-word. I stand on that. None of us should be saying the N-word. But of course, in today's reality, Black people, we feel we have reclaimed the word, and thus we say it. Okay. This woman, she says, and this is like my freshman year, she says, oh, we're doing a presentation, and make sure in your presentation you don't use no profanity. Like, don't say this, and don't say boop, the N-word. But she says the word. And so I'm looking around the class like,
this just happened.
Because it wasn't even a context for it. She wasn't saying like reading something. She wasn't like, oh, what is this word on the board? She just said, don't say this, don't say this, don't say this. Now this is a young professor. She's like in her late 20s, early 30s.
She just wanted to say it.
You just wanted to say it. And really, I was the only Black girl in the class, and it was a mixed girl in there also. She saw me and wanted to say it. Come on.
You said it was targeted.
Let's be for real. She saw me and she was like, don't say. Cause who are you talking to?
Right.
Why would anybody else in the present you being funny? So after this, it was on my heart, literally burning my heart to like write her an email or say something to her about it. But I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Then I had a friend in the class who was an Asian guy. I'm like, yeah, the professor said the N-word the other day. That's exactly what I said. I said, the professor said the N-word. He said what? And he said the N-word. I was like, oh my God. What? I was like, what? So at that point, I was like, okay, this is very weird. Now, fast forward. So this shows my mental state. It was on my heart to say something. And again, I'm using this as a comical example. But it was on my heart to say something. I didn't say something. Because I was like, it's not the big of a deal. I don't want to raise a fuss. I'm the only Black girl in the classroom. I don't want to shake things up. Senior year, I had another professor. It was for a study abroad class, and we were talking about like Moroccan literature. It wasn't even Moroccan, Lebanese literature. Okay. And so we're reading a book, and again, I'm the only Black person in this class. No. There was another Black person in the class with me, and then there was a mixed girl in the class also, but the rest of the students are white. The professor is reading. And in the text, she assigned the text for us to read the night before. In the text, I had already read a couple of sentences of it. I didn't truthfully read it all. But I had already read that it says the N-word a couple times. This woman, so-and-so-and-so in, so-and-so-and-so in, so-and-so-and-so in, so-and-so-and-so in. And I mean, every time. And at this point, again, this is a space of uncomfortability. I'm amongst my peers, white peers who, in PWIs, you had a sense of respectability politics. You don't want to look like you raising a fuss or nothing like that. But I raised my hand. I said, I think we can get the gist of the story if you could please just skip over the word. And she seemed so offended. Oh, okay, of course. We reading along with you. We could see it on the paper. What you need to say it for? So having that to me just shows a small bit of growth of what I'm saying of like assertiveness and okay, it was wrong then, it was wrong now. But I don't care what nobody in here think. You're not gonna be in here because I feel like you're talking to me. You constantly call me out my name. So you're not gonna be in here doing it. And I think that's the level of assertiveness and aggressiveness I'm speaking about. Of something happens and I'm quick to speak up about it. You know, sometimes that's to a fault. Sometimes I'm in the wrong. Like you said, you know, you're not always right in speaking up about something. But I've decided, like, I have to speak up about it. Because, again, predator, prey. Somebody will do you in on the basis of they think you could take it. You're not going to think I could take it. You're not even going to fix your mouth to say something to me because you already know the standard with which I operate at. You know what you could get across and what you can't get across. And having that boundary for myself, it keeps me out of so much. Like, I'm not getting into it with people constantly. I'm not going back and forth, having arguments, and this happens and this happens because people already know the baseline. Yajita not the one. She not the one, so we're not even going to go here. And that comes with its own connotations. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but it brings me an immense level of peace. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely, can I add on to that?
Go.
Because that is also, so in the ways that I talked about my communication skills improving, I did like, so in some ways I was still standing on the fact I know that I was very reactionary, but I did not advocate for myself. I wasn't proactive in advocating for myself and like my personality. I was very, I wouldn't say like in like academic, well, in academic environments maybe so, but I'm thinking in terms of like my just like relationships with like other people, like family, friends, peers, co-workers, all these different types of things. I would not like proactively set like boundaries, or I would just be so scared to like say the things that I like expected or needed, because I didn't want to appear a certain way. So it wasn't necessarily I didn't want to appear like an angry black woman or something like that, because it wasn't even issues like that, but more so like, what do I want and expect and need as a person? I didn't want to come off a certain type of way. I don't want to come off too confrontational. I don't want to come off too needy. I don't want to come off too high maintenance. I don't want to come off all of these different types of things. But I feel like now I know how to respectfully say, this is what I want, this is what I need, and you either get with it or get lost. Like, that's just, it is what it is. Kind of like what you said, not necessarily predator or prey, definitely, but like, just you gotta, I can finally speak up for myself, and like, you know, you can take it or you can leave it. And you know, I have a certain way that I like to do that, because, you know, like I said, I'm trying to be healthy in how I communicate these things. But now it's like I finally have the courage to say like, yeah, that wasn't okay, or you know what, I need this from you, and if you can't get that to me, you know, this friendship is, we're gonna struggle or whatever, or this dynamic. So I think that definitely, I just 100% agree about what you said, learning to advocate for yourself, and just like speak up. I feel like definitely that must be like a black girl thing. I don't know, like just in so many ways I feel like we're just like silenced or taught to minimize ourselves, and I feel like as you get older you understand like nobody's gonna speak up for you but you. So,
and sometimes you gotta speak up for other people.
Exactly.
So, going off of that, and again just talking about like growth that we've experienced as people, what do you think, you know, was the obstacle or difficulty with the growth? Like, obviously it wasn't all sweet, so like what do you think was some obstacles that you faced?
I think it's been the same obstacle in every type of growth, whether my growth was spiritual, whether my growth was in my personality, whether my growth was with external life circumstances. I think it was constantly, if you're going from one, you can't stay in a gray area, you can't stay in between two things. So constantly being faced with having to make the decisions, am I going to take what's coming with this next, like this next level, with this next period, like because you have to make adjustments. Like you don't accelerate or go to the next level and more is not demanded of you. You're not taken to a new stage and you don't lose something. Like things come off of you and you also gain other things. But it's like you can stay where you at or you can make a decision to choose this next thing. And I think for me, I was experiencing and have been experiencing so many changes like rapidly within like a 3-year span. And it was like it felt like everything was just high stakes. It's like choose this or choose this, choose this or choose this. Like, are you going to go forward with this or are you going to stay where you were? And it's just a painful process. So yeah, I think just going from one stage of yourself to a new version of yourself, you just like, you grieve the older version of yourself. You grieve everything that came with that, which is good but sometimes difficult. And then you have to take on more. It's like, what's the quote, like, to whom much is given, much is required. Like, if you're going to get more, if you're going to be better, more is going to be demanded out of you. So I really like the point that you made about like losing something, because I think for me that's been the same obstacle of like, you have to be okay with completely abandoning this thing, whatever it is for the growth that you're attached to. Like sometimes it comes in the characteristic of people, sometimes it comes into the, like, you know, way of ideas or you know, beliefs or jobs or anything. Like even when I transitioned from Potbelly, working at Potbelly to the finance field, I didn't know if I was going to get a job in finance. I said I just have to leave this because I know I want something. And so in order to take that next step, you just really do, again, like you were talking about earlier with picking the sides, and also like the crossroads that, you know, you're put on spiritually. You have to choose. You cannot hold the hand of one thing and start trying to join hands with another thing. It's gonna tear you apart, literally. So you have to decide. No, that's so true. As we kind of wrap it up, what, after all of this talk about growth, how would you describe the era that you are in? We asked everybody on Instagram, but like, how would you describe your, and you don't have to just say 3 words, how you just like, how would you describe it? I'm definitely in my creative girl era, and Amina knows this, but everything is a project, for real, for real. Like, I mean, this is a project. I've been doing a lot of house development. I've been doing personal development. You know, some of the creative arts that I used to do, like everything is a project, and I love it. There was once upon a time where I would feel burdened by having to do so many things, but the will to persist has definitely been with me. Like, I've just, you know, been pretty consistent on projects, and, you know, things that have been in the works for months, I've just been continuing on. So I would definitely say it's the creative girl era for me. What about you? I think I answered on the Instagram. I think that my answer still remains the same. I kind of like my all or nothing era. I think with everything right now, I'm just trying to give 110%. And I feel like it's been this way for a while now, but I still feel like I'm in this. Just like everything, I want to like I want to show up for people, like, you know, I want them to show up for me. Like, I want to, like, if I say that I'm going to do something, I want to do it, and I want to do it to its full capacity. I want to, when I start something, I want to finish it. Like, I just want to see everything through. And it's the same thing with, like, things that I can receive. Like, if, I don't know, it's just everything that I think that I need or deserve, and not in an entitled way, but just, you have standards for yourself. Like, it's literally everything I want it to be 110%. Like, it's just like, I just don't want to give a little bit of myself. I don't want to play back and forth. Like, I just want to show up and show out, like, fully in everything. So I feel like I call it my all or nothing era.
Love that, love that. And that's a great note for us to conclude on. So before we close, I have an amazing quote related to growth. So the quote is, keep on growing, keep on changing, keep on evolving until you reach perfection. And the quote is, of course, by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So thank you all for sticking with us thus far. That was, you know, this has been such a journey. This first episode alone, you know, from the inception to now, we've put so much work and love into it, and we're very happy about that. Make sure that you comment, that you like, that you know, interact with us. We love engagement. Like we said, this is a For the People podcast. We want to talk to you all. We want you all to talk to us. We want to be inspired by you all, and we hope that we can inspire you. So, you know, comment, tell us what you thought about it. If you think it sucks, we hope you put it in the DMs and not in our comments.
Please put that in the DMs and maybe not publicly, but don't eat us up too hard.
If you love it, you know, make sure you say that, because we really, really, really would appreciate it. So
yeah, definitely. And like, our DMs are always open. I know we've been doing a lot of asking you all what you want to see and hear on our Instagram, but you know, if it's a day we're not doing that and you just want to DM us like, I want to hear about this, I have this idea and I would really like to see you all do this, 110% we are open to that. So we really just hope you enjoyed this podcast. Like I said, it's probably gonna be a little rough just because it's very like casual between us, but we
some talking girls for real.
As you can see, we talk,
love a good key.
We literally like, we will key all day. Even now we're like, we have to end this because it's been going for a very long time, and we know we can talk about all of this stuff all day. We might do like a later part 2 or something.
But let us know if you want that. We'll definitely do a part 2.
Let us know what you want and how you enjoyed this and what your thoughts are about what we talked about. But thank you all so much, and we hope that you will be tuned in next time we drop.
We'll let you know when we'll post next on our Instagram, so make sure you're following.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.